What would you do if the company of your dreams rejected you? What if the one opportunity you had worked for your entire life suddenly disappeared? Would you accept defeat? Would you blame the world? Or would you decide to build something even greater? Because one young man did. And that's why millions of people around the world drive cars bearing his name today. His name was Soichiro Honda. And this isn't just the story of a car company. This is the story of rejection, failure, war, destruction, and one man's refusal to quit. Imagine being told that you're not good enough, not talented enough, not smart enough, that your dream simply isn't possible. What would you do? Because that's exactly what happened to Soichiro Honda. He wasn't born into wealth. He wasn't born into power. He wasn't born with advantages. He was born in a small village in Japan in 1906. His father was a blacksmith and bicycle repairman. As a young boy, Soichiro spent countless hours watching his father repair machines. The smell of oil, the sound of metal, the sparks flying through the air. To many people, it was simply work, but to young Soichiro, it was magic. Have you ever discovered something that made your heart race? Something that made you forget about time? For Soichiro Honda, that something was machinery. He didn't dream about becoming rich. He dreamed about building, creating, inventing. And perhaps that's where all extraordinary success begins, not with money, but with obsession. As a young boy, Soichiro became fascinated by automobiles. At a time when cars were still rare in Japan, he would run for miles just to see one pass by. Imagine that, a child chasing a cloud of dust because he was chasing a dream. Most people saw a machine. He saw the future. But dreams alone aren't enough. Dreams require sacrifice. At the age of 15, Soichiro left home and moved to Tokyo. Think about that. A teenager, alone, no money, no guarantees, only a dream. Could you do it? Could you leave everything behind to chase something that might never happen? Soichiro Honda did. He found work as an apprentice mechanic. The work was difficult, the hours were long, the pay was almost nothing. But he didn't care, because every day he learned, every bolt, every engine, every machine. He absorbed knowledge like a man dying of thirst. And slowly, the young boy who chased cars became a young man who understood them. Years later, Soichiro opened his own workshop. He worked relentlessly, day and night, failure after failure, experiment after experiment, because he believed that success belonged to those who refused to stop learning. Then, one day, he had an idea that he believed would change his life. He wanted to create piston rings, and not just any piston rings. He wanted to sell them to Toyota. Imagine that, a young inventor dreaming of working with one of the biggest companies in Japan. He invested everything, his time, his money, his future. He worked tirelessly to perfect his invention. He believed this was his opportunity, his breakthrough, his chance. But then, something happened, something that shattered his dream. Toyota rejected him, not once, not twice, completely. Imagine hearing those words, "We don't want your product. We don't believe in your work. You are not good enough." What would you do? Would you quit?
Would you give up? Would you finally believe what everyone else had been telling you? Most people would have, but Soichiro Honda wasn't most people, because he made a decision that would eventually change the automotive world. To be continued.
Imagine spending months working on a dream, working late into the night, sacrificing everything, believing that success is finally within reach, and then hearing one word: no. That's exactly what happened to Soichiro Honda. Toyota rejected his piston ring design. The company he admired, the company he dreamed of working with, the company he believed would change his life, rejected him. Can you imagine how that felt? To put your heart into something only to discover it wasn't good enough? Most people would have quit. Most people would have accepted defeat. Most people would have told themselves, maybe I'm not talented enough. But Soichiro Honda believed something different. He believed failure was information, not the end. Think about that. Instead of becoming angry, he became curious. Instead of giving up, he decided to learn. He returned to school. He studied metallurgy. He studied engineering. He studied everything he could about making better piston rings. Imagine that level of humility. A man who had already invested everything, admitting, I don't know enough, and then choosing to start over. Have you ever done that? Have you ever admitted that you needed to become better before you could become successful? That's one of the hardest things a person can do, and perhaps that's why so few people become extraordinary, because greatness requires humility. After years of study, experimentation, and relentless effort, Soichiro Honda finally succeeded. Toyota accepted his piston ring design. Think about that moment. The rejection that once destroyed him had become the reason he improved. The failure that almost ended his dream had actually prepared him for success. But life wasn't finished testing Soichiro Honda. Not even close. Because just when everything seemed to be working, the world changed. War arrived. During World War II, Soichiro's factory faced enormous challenges. Materials became scarce, resources disappeared, workers were called away, and then something unimaginable happened. Bombs destroyed his factory. Imagine standing in front of everything you've built, watching smoke rise into the sky, watching years of work disappear. What would you do? Would you rebuild? Would you surrender? Would you finally accept that success wasn't meant for you? Soichiro Honda rebuilt, because that's what dreamers do. They rebuild again and again and again. But then something unbelievable happened. An earthquake struck, and it destroyed his factory once more. Think about that. Rejected, then accepted, then destroyed by war, then destroyed by nature. How much can one person lose? How many times can one person start over? Most people would have stopped believing. Most people would have called it bad luck. Most people would have walked away forever. But Soichiro Honda made another decision. He sold what remained of his business, not because he had given up, but because he was preparing for his next dream. And sometimes losing everything creates space for something greater. Japan, after the war, was devastated. Cities were destroyed. People were poor. Transportation was limited. The country needed hope, and Soichiro Honda saw an opportunity.
He began attaching small engines to bicycles. Simple, practical, affordable. Imagine that. A man who had lost everything twice was once again building something from almost nothing. Not luxury, not prestige, not a global empire, just a bicycle with a motor. And sometimes the biggest empires begin with the smallest ideas. People loved them. Demand exploded, orders increased, and for the first time in years, Soichiro Honda could feel it. Hope, real hope. But the most extraordinary chapter of his life was still ahead, because the man rejected by Toyota was about to build one of the greatest companies in the world. To be continued.
How many times can a person start over? Once? Twice? 3 times? What if every time you built something, the world destroyed it? Would you still continue? Because that's exactly what Soichiro Honda did. After losing his factory to war, after losing it again to an earthquake, after selling what little remained, he did something extraordinary. He started over. Again. Imagine post-war Japan. The country was exhausted. Cities had been destroyed. People struggled to survive. Gasoline was scarce. Cars were expensive. And millions of people needed a way to move. Most people saw a crisis. Soichiro Honda saw an opportunity. He began attaching small surplus engines to bicycles. Think about that. The man who dreamed of building world-class automobiles was now building motorized bicycles. Did he feel disappointed? Did he feel that he had failed? Perhaps. But he understood something that many people never learn. Success doesn't always arrive in the form you imagined. Sometimes greatness begins with whatever you have left. The first motorcycles were simple, no luxury, no elegance, just practicality. But people loved them. Why? Because they solved a problem. And every great business begins by solving a problem. Orders increased, demand exploded. The tiny operation grew faster than anyone expected. And in 1948, Soichiro Honda made one of the most important decisions of his life. He founded Honda Motor Company. Imagine writing those words for the first time. Honda. Not Toyota, not another company. His company, his dream, his future. Can you imagine how that felt? After years of rejection, after years of failure, after losing everything, to finally build something that belonged entirely to you. But Soichiro Honda wasn't interested in creating an average company. He wanted to build the best. He believed that quality mattered, innovation mattered, courage mattered, and perhaps most importantly, he believed that impossible goals created extraordinary people. Have you ever noticed that successful people often set goals that seem ridiculous? That's because greatness requires believing in something that doesn't exist yet. And Soichiro Honda believed. Then something unbelievable happened. Honda motorcycles began dominating competitions, not because they were lucky, not because they were cheap, because they were excellent. Imagine the feeling.
The same man who had once been rejected by Toyota was now creating machines that were admired around the world. But Honda wasn't finished, not even close, because he had another impossible dream. Cars. Not motorcycles, not bicycles, cars. And once again, people doubted him. Experts said Honda should stay in the motorcycle business. Investors worried. Competitors laughed. They said the automotive industry was already too crowded. They said Honda was making a mistake. Have you heard that before? Don't try. Stay where you're comfortable. Be realistic. History is full of people who listened to those words, and history rarely remembers them. Soichiro Honda ignored the criticism because he understood something powerful. If you only attempt what others believe is possible, you'll never create anything extraordinary. And so Honda entered the automotive business. It was risky, it was expensive, it was terrifying, and it would become one of the greatest decisions in business history. Because the man who had been rejected by Toyota was about to challenge the entire automotive world. To be continued.
What would you do if the entire industry told you that your dream was impossible? Would you listen? Would you protect what you had already built? Or would you risk everything once again? Because that's exactly what Soichiro Honda did. By the late 1950s, Honda had become one of Japan's fastest-growing motorcycle companies. People respected the brand. Customers trusted the machines. Success had finally arrived. Most people would have been satisfied. Most people would have protected their success. But Soichiro Honda had never been interested in safety. He was interested in possibility. And that's what made him dangerous. Dangerous to doubt, dangerous to competitors, dangerous to anyone who believed the future had already been decided. Soichiro Honda wanted more. Not more money, not more fame. He wanted to prove that a Japanese company could compete with the greatest automobile manufacturers in the world. Think about how impossible that sounded. At the time, companies like Ford and General Motors dominated the industry. European manufacturers had decades of experience. And Honda? Honda was known for motorcycles. People laughed. Experts warned him. Investors worried. They told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life. Have you ever had a dream that everyone else believed was foolish? A dream so large that even the people who loved you doubted it? That was Soichiro Honda's reality. But he had already learned one important lesson. The world often calls your dream impossible right before it becomes reality. And so he continued. Honda entered the automobile industry. The early years were difficult. Mistakes were made. Money was lost. Pressure increased. Imagine lying awake at night, knowing that if this decision failed, everything you had built could disappear. Would you still continue? Soichiro Honda did, because he understood something that most people never do. Failure is expensive, but regret costs even more. Then something unbelievable happened. Honda's engineers created automobiles that were efficient, reliable, affordable, innovative. People noticed, customers returned, and slowly the impossible started becoming reality. But Soichiro Honda wasn't trying to become successful only in Japan. He wanted to challenge the world. Think about that.
a man rejected by Toyota, a man whose factories had been destroyed, a man who had started over multiple times, now wanted to compete globally. That level of belief almost sounds irrational. And perhaps that's exactly what extraordinary success requires: the courage to believe something that nobody else can see. Then came America, the world's largest automobile market, the dream market, the impossible market. Many people thought Honda would fail. They believed Japanese companies couldn't compete. They believed Honda was too small, too inexperienced, too late. Have you noticed how often the world says those same words? Too small, too inexperienced, too late. And yet history is filled with people who proved otherwise. Honda entered the American market, and slowly something incredible happened. People loved the cars. They were reliable, they were fuel efficient, they were practical. And when the oil crisis of the 1970s changed the automotive industry forever, Honda was ready. The company exploded in popularity. The same man who had once been told he wasn't good enough was now leading one of the world's most respected companies. Imagine standing there, looking back at every rejection, every failure, every destroyed factory, every moment you considered giving up, and realizing that all of it had led to this. Because sometimes the greatest victories belong to those who survive the greatest struggles. But Soichiro Honda's greatest lesson wasn't about cars, it was about something much more important. And that lesson would inspire millions of people around the world. To be continued.
What is the true meaning of success? Is it becoming rich? Is it building a global company? Is it seeing your name recognized all over the world? Or is it something much deeper? Because if there's one person who understood the true meaning of success, it was Soichiro Honda. By the 1970s and 1980s, Honda had become one of the most respected companies on Earth. Its motorcycles dominated races. Its cars were admired around the world. Its engineers created innovations that competitors struggled to match. The man who had once been rejected by Toyota had accomplished what few people thought was possible. He had built an empire. But here's what made Soichiro Honda different. He never saw himself as a billionaire. He never saw himself as a genius. He saw himself as a student. Imagine that. After becoming one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history, he still believed he had more to learn. Perhaps that's why he continued to succeed, because success often ends when curiosity ends. Have you ever noticed that the most extraordinary people remain humble? They understand that greatness isn't a destination, it's a journey. And Soichiro Honda never stopped traveling. He often told his engineers something unusual. He encouraged them to fail, not because he wanted failure, but because he understood that innovation cannot exist without risk. Think about that. Most companies fear mistakes. Most people fear embarrassment. Most people fear failure. But Soichiro Honda believed failure was evidence that you were trying, that you were learning, that you were growing. And perhaps that's one of the greatest lessons ever taught. Failure isn't proof that you should stop. Failure is proof that you're moving. Imagine if Soichiro Honda had accepted Toyota's rejection. Imagine if he had quit after his factory was bombed. Imagine if he had quit after the earthquake. Imagine if he had believed that he was too late, too unlucky, or too unsuccessful. There would be no Honda, no global company, no legacy, no inspiration for millions of people.
And perhaps that's why his story matters so much. Because his story isn't really about automobiles. It's about resilience. It's about courage. It's about the willingness to begin again after everything falls apart. Have you ever had to start over, really start over, when you had nothing left except belief? Soichiro Honda understood that feeling. He lived it again and again. And every time life destroyed his plans, he made the same decision: continue. Not because he knew he would win, not because success was guaranteed, but because quitting guaranteed failure. That's the difference. The people who become legends don't avoid failure. They survive it. They learn from it. They build on top of it. And eventually they become stronger because of it. Today, Honda operates all around the world. Millions of people drive Honda cars. Millions ride Honda motorcycles. Millions trust a company built by a man who was once told he wasn't good enough. Can you imagine how extraordinary that is? A rejection became an empire. A failure became a legacy. A dream became reality. But perhaps Soichiro Honda's greatest achievement wasn't building cars. Perhaps it was proving that persistence can overcome almost anything. Rejection, poverty, war, failure, loss, fear. Because every time life knocked him down, he stood back up. And maybe that's the real definition of success. Not never falling, but always rising.
What if the greatest advantage in life isn't talent? What if it isn't money? What if it isn't intelligence? What if the greatest advantage is simply refusing to quit? Because that's the lesson Soichiro Honda spent his entire life teaching the world. Today, millions of people recognize the Honda name. They see the cars, the motorcycles, the engines, the racing victories, the global empire. But they don't always see the young man who was rejected, the man whose factory was destroyed during war, the entrepreneur who lost everything, the dreamer who started over again and again and again. Think about that. Soichiro Honda didn't build one company, he built himself. Every rejection strengthened him, every failure educated him, every disaster transformed him. And perhaps that's the hidden truth behind every extraordinary success story. Success isn't something you find, it's something you become. Have you ever wondered why some people achieve greatness while others give up? It's not because life is easier for them. In fact, life is often harder. The difference is what they decide to do when everything falls apart. Soichiro Honda had every reason to quit. He was rejected by the company he admired. His factory was destroyed during war. His rebuilt factory was destroyed by an earthquake. He lost money, he lost time, he lost certainty. But he never lost one thing: hope. And hope is more powerful than most people realize, because hope creates action. Action creates opportunity, and opportunity changes lives. Imagine if Soichiro Honda had accepted defeat after Toyota rejected him. Imagine if he had believed that his failures defined him. Imagine if he had decided that he was simply unlucky. The world would have lost one of its greatest innovators. Millions of people would never have been inspired by his story. And perhaps that's why your own story matters more than you think. Because somewhere in your life there is probably a rejection, a failure, a disappointment, a moment that convinced you to stop believing. But what if that moment isn't the end? What if it's the beginning? Soichiro Honda once said, "Success is 99% failure." Think about that. Not success is the opposite of failure. Success is built from failure. Every mistake, every rejection, every painful lesson, they become the foundation of greatness. And perhaps that's why Soichiro Honda's story continues to inspire people around the world. Not because he built cars, not because he built motorcycles, not because he built a global empire, but because he proved that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary things if they refuse to quit. So, if you're struggling right now, if you've been rejected, if you have failed, if you're afraid that your dream is impossible, remember Soichiro Honda. Remember the young man rejected by Toyota. Remember the entrepreneur who lost everything. Remember the dreamer who started over again and again and again. Because every rejection can become an opportunity. Every failure can become a lesson. Every ending can become a beginning. Every billionaire, every company, every empire, every legend started from zero. And perhaps your greatest success story hasn't happened yet.